They have been very precise, precision strikes against al-Qaeda and their affiliates.
That was President Obama last year defending the country's drone program. In his 4 years in office, the president has made unprecedented use of this weapon. With more than 400 CIA strikes against targets in Pakistan and Yemen, that's 8 times as many as under President George W. Bush. And now NBC News' Michael Isikoff has obtained a 16-page Justice Department memo that makes the legal argument to justify this administration's use of drone to kill terrorist suspects, including American citizens. The government can order the killing of its own citizens without due process if those citizens are believed to be senior operational leaders of al-Qaeda or an associated force, even if there is no intel indicating they are involved in an active plot to attack the United States. Today, Attorney General Eric Holder addressed the issue.
We only take these kinds of actions when there's an imminent threat, when capture is not feasible, and when we are confident that we're doing so in a way that's consistent with federal and international law.
Yet, according to the memo, the government gets to define the word imminent in a very broad way. The condition that an operational leader present an imminent threat of violent attack against the United States does not require the United States to have clear evidence that a specific attack on U.S. persons and interests will take place in the immediate future. For the feasibility of capture, that too is broadly defined by the government. The decision to capture or kill can be made in a case-by-case basis. Today, the White House declined to discuss the memo in detail, and spokesman Jay Carney defended the drone program.
These strikes are legal, they are ethical, and they are wise.
Let's turn to our panel tonight. Robert Greenwald of Brave New Films. Joan Walsh is also joining us tonight, Salon.com, and Lawrence Korb, Senior Fellow at the Center for American Progress. You know, I have to say, as an American citizen, we are all entitled to due process under the law. And this document gives the president the ability to act as judge, jury, and executioner. I'm troubled by it. It doesn't meet the moral or constitutional standard that we expect of any administration. And I have to say that liberals have come certainly a long way to crying about the FISA court and the Patriot Act and listening in on conversations to literally taking out innocent people around the world. We're losing the moral high ground by doing this, and even more troubling is that there are people in Washington who are ominously silent and not questioning this process and willing to stand behind the legal opinion of the Justice Department. This is President Obama's legacy right now. It is dangerous. Reaction to the memo? Let's turn to Joan Walsh tonight. Joan, your thoughts on this?
Well, Ed, I think that you pointed to the section of the memo that really is the most troubling, that this idea of imminent danger, which, you know, you could imagine as in our own country, a hostage situation or a terror threat where a police officer really, it's okay that he, at last resort, kills someone. But when you see it defined as you don't need clear evidence, it doesn't have to be an actual specific attack, and it doesn't have to be in the immediate future. It really could justify just about anything. And, you know, I'm somebody who voted for this president twice, and I think a lot of liberals have one reaction is, well, I trust the guy, but we can't allow our presidents to be judge and jury like this. And the other thing, I think the bottom line here for virtually everybody would have to be that there's no real either judicial or legislative review, not even after the fact. We can't even get those memos or white papers from the government. It was leaked to Michael Isikoff. So, you know, I think there's going to be a lot more questions about this in the days and weeks to come.
No doubt. Mr. Korb, your thoughts on what Eric Holder, Attorney General, said today. He says that it's consistent with federal and international law. Are we sure about that?
Well, it is, because I don't think you can use U.S. citizenship as a way to hide behind planning a terrorist attack on the United States. Now, one can argue what is an imminent threat, but the fact of the matter is that people who are with al-Qaeda or associate groups are planning attacks on the United States. And what this memo does, and the Attorney General mentioned it, I think, today, over and above the previous attempts to define this, they said not just the laws of war, not only does it have to be imminent, but there has to be no other way to get them. In other words, that you can't capture using Americans. And this is mainly for people in foreign countries. It doesn't. We're not talking about the United States.
Yeah.
And when you're waging war in a foreign country, and remember that the Congress authorized the use of military action against Al-Qaeda and its affiliates back in 2001, the Justice Department or the courts don't review your acts when you're waging war in a different country.
But this can be done and ordered on people who do not sit in the Oval Office, by people who, Mr. Brennan, and how far down does it go? To a general, to a colonel? And there's no due process here whatsoever. And I'm curious as to, Robert Greenwald, your thoughts. Why wasn't this memo released to the public by the Obama administration?
The Obama administration is doing everything in its power to keep every single aspect of this disastrous and horrific policy of assassinating people in other countries. They're doing everything they can to keep it hidden.
Assassinating?
They won't explain the legal justification.
You're saying assassinations are taking place? Is that what you call it?
Yes, that's what I'm calling it, with people around the world who have not been tried by a jury. There's been no evidence against them, and we are guessing. Remember this, we are guessing and accusing them of things that we have absolutely no firm evidence about. I was in Pakistan. I spent a lot of time talking to people, Ed. We've talked about this. It's heartbreaking on a moral level, and it's absolutely disastrous on a security level.
I'm surprised that there are veteran senators that aren't troubled by this. Joan Walsh, where's the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Pat Leahy? It would seem to me that he would take great interest in what's unfolding here, because we're losing the moral high ground by doing this. You could argue that.
Well, I think this is going to be a subject for the confirmation hearings of John Brennan, certainly. And I think one of the other issues that the white paper brings forth is that it doesn't have to be the president making this decision. It just refers to an informed, high-level administration official. That's worrisome, too. So I think that this white paper just makes it seem as though the standards that even that we thought existed for this program don't really exist. And I think, as Mr. Korb suggests, we face enemies, and the congressional authorization of military force really did give the president a lot of latitude, President Bush. But it's been unfortunate to see a Democratic president who actually opposed the authorization himself, though he wasn't in the Senate, use it and take it farther than his predecessor, because this is way further than anything President Bush did that we know of.
Mr. Korb, what about the oversight on this? I mean, Mr. Greenwald says that we're assassinating people. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, and I think the Attorney General made that very clear today, acting in self-defense is not an assassination. The other thing is, yes, the president has the authority and he can delegate it to other people in the chain of command. But what we do know is the president has been intimately involved in making all those decisions, at least, every time that something comes to light, whether it's bin Laden or al-Awlaki, he is right up there and doing it. So he is very much involved. Now,
but the administration makes it sound like there's no innocent people being killed. I mean, on one hand, the president is ready to pass gun control legislation in this country if we can save one life. But yet it just seems like this administration is very callous, and liberals are being dumbed down by this, saying it's okay, we're fighting terror when we're killing more than one person around the world with drone attacks. What about that?
Well, again, I think there is collateral damage, and that's why this memo talks about the laws of war. Before you use military force, you have to look at whether, in fact, it's justified and the possible collateral damage. That's an issue that's, no matter whether you're using drones or you're on the battlefield, that's a decision that you have to make.
Where's the oversight? Where's the oversight on this, Mr. Korb?
Well, I think basically Congress ought to get more involved. I want all this stuff to be released. I wish it didn't have to come out the way that it did. Congress ought to step up. If they don't like it, they ought to repeal or put a time limit on that law they passed back in 2001. I think that's where we really have got to get.
One thing that jumps at me is our security so fragile that we have to say, hey, look, if you take out the bad guy and a few people on the side, don't worry about it. Robert Greenwald, that's what it sounds like the policy is.
Well, unfortunately, again, the problem is they're hiding the policy in every possible way. Look, we've killed 178 children with the drone strikes. Over 4,000 people have been killed. And reminder to everybody, we're not at war with Pakistan. So the war analogy is not a direct and possible one. I spoke to Imran Khan, who's running for president of Pakistan. He said, yeah, there are 100 bad guys and fanatics. You now have 1 million people in the tribal areas who hate you because you're killing their brothers and their sisters and their cousins. So I would argue on a security level, in addition to a moral level, this is disastrous policy, and it's going to haunt the administration until they change it and until we get the elected officials to change it.
Well, I think Democratic senators need to step out and answer, if this was the Bush administration, would they be so silent? Robert Greenwald, Joan Walsh, and Lawrence Korb, thanks for the conversation tonight.